Hi, welcome to my channel Takniki Gyan Guru. In today's video, we will understand Minikube. So, what is Minikube? So, Minikube is a tool that enables user to run Kubernetes cluster locally on your machine. It is designed to simplify the process of setting up and managing a Kubernetes environment for development, testing, and learning purposes. Minikube creates a single node Kubernetes cluster on local machine, allowing user to experiment with Kubernetes features without the need for a full-scale production environment. Minikube provides a lightweight and easy-to-use platform for running Kubernetes locally, enabling developers to quickly set up and experiment with Kubernetes application without the complexity of managing a full-scale cluster. To summarize this, Kubernetes Minikube is a small version of Kubernetes. Why Minikube? See, see, sometimes for an example, there are many developers who need to experiment the Kubernetes, but they do not have proper infrastructure. Suppose I do not have access to Kubernetes cloud, different cloud like in Azure, AKS, and AWS EKS, or in Google GK, right? So the Kubernetes platform is already there in cloud, but I do not have access to the cloud, or I don't know how to use cloud, right? I need something that I need to test my application on Kubernetes. Also, I can download and install Kubernetes, but I need a proper infrastructure like multi-node masters and all those things. So multiple machines I need to install Kubernetes. It can be installed in one machine also, but the scale or the infrastructure size like the RAM and CPU hard disk is required, right? So those kind of infrastructure is not available for the developer sometime, right? So Minikube is the solution for the developer who can install Minikube in their environment, their laptops, and test their application and deploy into the Kubernetes. So this is the reason Minikube is introduced, right? Small uh, Kubernetes that can be installed in your local machine or laptop, right? So let's understand the advantages of a Minikube. So first advantage is easy to set up. So it is very easy to set up in your local environment. Second one is lightweight. It is very small, lightweight. We need not to have multiple nodes and um, multiple worker nodes or master nodes. That is not there. It has only one node setup. Everything should be there in one machine. It is isolated, so all the application will be isolated. It can be installed in your local server. I mean, in your laptop you can also set up this Minikube and you can test your application on Kubernetes. Learning and education purposes means somebody who want to learn without installing full-fledged Kubernetes, you can learn and educate. Other thing is the disadvantage. What are the disadvantages? A single node limitation means it should be installed in single node. So if you want to scale in different nodes, that is not possible because it will have in one node installation. Limited scalability, as I said, you can't scale out in multiple node, right? It should be limited to your pods, right? Pods we will discuss. We have already discussed pods in our previous video, you can go and watch. Limited prod usability, that is means you can't use Minikube in your prod environment because it is, you know, one node, single node Kubernetes means if the node is down, your whole application will be down, right? So in the production, you should have, full-fledged Kubernetes so that it should have multi-master, multi-node architecture, where if master node or worker node is down, still your application will be working fine, right? The resource consumption still, you have one node installation of Kubernetes, it will be consume your RAM or CPU and hard disk also. And the last one, dependency on driver means Minikube required some drivers like Docker or the VirtualBox, where it will be, you know, install your masters, the control plane, master nodes and worker nodes inside your VirtualBox. So that driver is required. It will internally managed by the Minikube. So that is done. Let's understand Minikube installation guide, how we can install, right? So first of all, for an example, I have my laptop. You can also have laptop, desktop, anywhere. So I will try to show you how I can install Minikube in my laptop, right? In my laptop, developer here. I am the developer, so I'm saying I am just doing creating a Ubuntu machine using Vagrant or VirtualBox in my laptop. So in my laptop, I'll create a Ubuntu box. My laptop is basically Windows machine, right? Inside the Windows, using the Windows, I'm using Windows 11. You should have Windows 10 or any server, right? Windows server. So you can use any Windows machine. If you have the Linux, you can create Linux, other Linux machine, Unix, Ubuntu box using the Vagrant or VirtualBox, right? So how we can create a Ubuntu machine in my laptop? So for that you need to install Vagrant and VirtualBox. I have already created so many videos on this, how you can create Windows machine or the Linux machine in your laptop. You can go and watch my video. I will also put into the description, right? So in my laptop I will create a Ubuntu box 20.04. Then I will run some command, right? What command I need to run? First of all, I will download the Docker, install the Docker, and give some permission like whatever user I am having in Ubuntu, that user should be into the Docker group, right? So I will give that permission. Then I will download Minikube, install Minikube, and then start the Minikube. When I start, then I need to check the status of the Minikube, or I can get the IP address of the Minikube, right? Using this IP address, I can get access to my application, right? Also, to run the Kubernetes, I should have the kubelets, command prompt, where this tool kubelet, using this kubelet, I should push my command or write my command to, do my day-to-day things like deploying the application, create the services, whatever command I will use using the kubelet. So that kubelet is required, right, to run any command in Minikube. In Minikube or Kubernetes, right? Kubelet is required. Using the kubelet, we can run our commands. Correct. Now, once our Minikube is ready, then we will create a small, deployment. Deployment is basically using this deployment file. This is a YAML file where we will define our application, the image, from where we are getting the image. using that image we will deploy our container. So how many pods we will create, that configuration will be there, how in which port we can access, uh, what is the image we are accessing, from where we are accessing, right? Also the how many pods we want to create, so those configuration will be there in that YAML file, and then we'll deploy using, and this configuration is called deployment. So in the Kubernetes we already discussed in the previous video, we have different kinds, you know. In the first kind is deployment, the services, the namespace, a lot of other things we have, right? So we'll talk about the deployment, and another one is services. Services basically when we deploy our application in different ports, how we can access that application in through that port, right? The service will help us to access our application. There are multiple ways like using the node port, cluster IP, or load balancer, right? So we will one by one we will see how we can get access to the node port and cluster IP, and that, you know, this way we can get access to our application, right? So once we run this command, right, first of all it will create a Minikube cluster, and that Docker will be installed inside this one, right? And once we create a deployment, then the pods will be created inside the cluster, right? And the pod 1, pod 2, many, whatever you have configured in your deployment file, like how many pods do you want, that is called replica. So replica set will be, replica will be mentioned in your deployment. If you want three, then three pod will be created. So this is time to go for the demo. Let's move for the demo now. Now we are in laptop. Let's create a Ubuntu machine. So how we can create? I have already installed Vagrant and VirtualBox. So if you want to go through how to create, uh, you know, Windows machine or Linux machine, you can go and watch my previous video. So for this, I have created a Vagrant file. Let's understand the Vagrant file. So the Vagrant box equal to Ubuntu 20.04. This is the image, right? Using this image, I will create my Ubuntu box, right? And I have given a machine name node VM. User is not required for now. It is by default Vagrant. Port is 8082. My host machine port, and on the VM machine post will be sync with this port, right? So I can access my application from 8082. So we want to configure the Vagrant, how the VMbox is, means the VM OS is Vagrant box, right? This one, Ubuntu. This is the operating system. The host name means the machine name. VM name is node VM. You can see the host name is done. The VM provider VirtualBox. So we need to, we have to create our virtual machine using VirtualBox. So we have already installed the VirtualBox. This Vagrant will use VirtualBox to create our machine. We name is this node VM, and memory I have given 2048, 2 GB memory for this VM, right? 2 GB is required. Now what I'm doing is I'm just syncing my host machine folder to the Linux machine folder. So D Takniki can go Minikube host drive. I this drive will be synced to my inside my VM, like the Ubuntu box home Vagrant Node.js. So whatever I will push in my local machine in host drive, that will be available in Node.js into my VM, right? This is the network. What I'm doing here is I am just The network is basically I am giving public network means it should have the internet access, right? Because when we are using the apt-get update our packages, then it should have the internet access. That's why I'm giving the public network, right? And this is the private network means it should have a IP address. This machine should have IP address. This one, right? And I'm just port forwarding 8082. The guest is 8082 and host is also 8082. This VM, you can see the node, this one VM port 8082, correct? So let's run this Vagrant and create a VM. I'm into the same folder. If you can see this, this is the Vagrant file. This is the host. Right? I have given two file, the deployment and service. We will see what are these files are, right? So I'm just giving this one, right? I need to use this path in my this one, correct? So copy this one. I'm in the same folder, cd, same folder, right? Now I have to run vagrant up. So this vagrant up command will get the configuration from that file because I am the same folder, right? And vagrant is already installed. So I'll run vagrant command. This will create a Ubuntu box in my Windows machine. So let's wait until it's create a machine. Okay, it says that this machine is already available. So let's give some different name. Go to the file and say Minikube VM. Okay, let's save and run it again. So VM is now created. Let's check if you want to log into the VM. Just type vagrant SSH. Yeah. So I am now into my Linux box, right? Vagrant. Username is Vagrant. What I need to do is let's clear it and do the ls. Let's see node.js, right? Why this node.js folder is, we have sync our local folder, this one, right? Minikube local folder is host drive. You can see this one, Minikube host drive will be your node.js folder, right? So this node.js folder will be sync with your host drive. In my host drive I have two file, nginx deployment.yaml, nginx service.yaml. Now if you type ls node.js, you can see two file, nginx deployment and nginx service file. So if you put any other file, suppose I'm putting test, right? So this file will also listed here, test.txt, right? So that folder will be synced to your Linux box. Now we have to download the docker, and so let's go to the official docker site. Let's say download ins download and install Docker download Docker for Ubuntu. Okay, now click on this one. So how to install? So let's say install using the apt repository, right? So set up Docker repository. So what we will do is we'll copy this whole code. So let's again, you search download Docker for Ubuntu and go for your official Docker site, right? And come down till here, installation method, and set up Docker apt repository. So copy this one, go to your Ubuntu box and say you can create one file when install Docker. Okay, so created I and then paste over here escape colon wq. So this file is ready. So if you want to see again, you can see vim I tap install Docker. You can see your file over here, right? So let's come and now we have to run this file, right? So how we can run? You can type source and then file name. So this will update your package and then download and install your Docker. Now go to the website again and copy the second point. We need to install Docker using this command. Just copy it and paste and run it. Say yes. Now we have to give access to the user. So I am the Vagrant user, right? So let's say sudo user mod -ag docker, right? And we will have the Vagrant user, right? Vagrant and new group, new grp docker. So this will add Vagrant to the Docker group. Now we have to download and install Minikube. So let's go and search download and install Minikube, and we go to your Minikube site, right? Go down. So you have to say the official Minikube site. I'm in the official Minikube site. You can go again, just download and install Minikube. Click on the first one, Minikube, right? Official site. Here I want to install on Linux 64 x 8664 stable version, right? So this one. So first of all I need to copy the first one. This will be download the Minikube, you know, um, Minikube. This will download the Minikube. Let's check ls. The Minikube is downloaded, right? So we have installed Docker, that is already used. Node.js it already sync with my host machine, and this is already downloaded. Again, next line, this will install sudo install minikube user. This will be install minikube in this one in the user local win this one. From here minikube will be accessed, right? And rm I don't want to remove, right? Means it will remove my minikube file from the from here. From here I don't want to delete it. Maybe it will be used later, so I don't want to delete, so I don't want to use this one, right? So let's run this. Oh, sorry, it's again downloaded. I need to copy this one. Copy and run now. So it is run, right? Now what I need to do is we need to type minikube start. Minikube start will start your minikube. So let's enter. So now you can see the minikube is started. Let's check mini. This will show you the status of minikube. Okay, the host kubelet API server kube config all is running. Now I want to check the IP address of the minikube. So let's type. This will show you the IP address. Using this IP address, I can access my minikube, right? So nothing is installed. Like one thing, as I discussed, we need to run command, right? Using the cube control is the command. What we shortcut kubectl, right? So how we can install? Let's install minikube kubectl get pu. You can see mini kubectl instead. We can't directly access this. Just like kubectl get pods. We want to see how many pods are running, right? So it will say kubectl command not found, right? Because we can see like in the mini kubectl get pods, right? So you can see no resource found in default name. So it means now kubectl is working using the minikube, right? But I want to use only kubectl. So how? Either there are two ways. We have already installed using minikube, or you can directly install kubectl, right? But because we are using minikube, this will work. So let's create an alias like alias kubectl equals to double quote minikube space kubectl hyphen hyphen, right? This will create alias of this one minikube kubectl. Now type kubectl get pod. Let's say nothing is there, right? Now let's say kubectl get sbc. If there are any services are there, it will list you all the services, right? This is the service Kubernetes cluster IP, this one, right? One service is already installed, Kubernetes cluster IP, this one. Now let's uh, see. I want to see the cluster info, right? Information of the cluster. So type kubectl cluster info. This will show you your cluster, like the control plane is running on this IP address with this port, and the core DNS is running this. Further develop kubectl cluster and dump. So that is not required for now, right? So let's deploy one sample Nginx application and then we'll test it, right? So how we can do this? As I said, I have already uh, show you the this one, right? This one, two files are there. One is deployment. Let's open this deployment file. Open with notepad. Okay, so what I mentioned is here in the YAML file, API version is apps v1, current is deployment. This is required, right? Deployment. So I am, you know, using this YAML file for deployment of my application, right? So I need to mention deployment, a metadata. The name of this one is Nginx deployment. Deployment name is Nginx deployment. In the spec section, we mention the replica. Replica is basically how many pods you are creating in your Kubernetes cluster or worker nodes, right? So three replica I'm going to create. Let's say you can mention two, three, four, whatever, right? Let's say three. The application name is Nginx. We are deploying the application Nginx. In the template, we are again saying application is Nginx. Container, will give the container info here. Name is Nginx. Image Nginx. It will download Nginx image from the cloud, right? From the Docker hub, basically, and the port will be 80, right? So this way, it will deploy an Nginx into the um, Kubernetes, right? And it will be accessed through 80 port, right? Once it is deployed, how we can access this application, Nginx application? So we need to create a service. Through service, we will access, right? So API version again v1, kind is service. Now there kind was deployment, here kind is service. So we are deploying a service here, and the service name is Nginx service. Type is node port. No, there are multiple, way of accessing our application, right? Node port, cluster IP, and the load balancer. Node port is basically it will create a port, right, inside all the node, right? If we have multiple node, same port will be created. Through that port, we can access our application, right? Different port, different nodes, the same port. Cluster IP is we have the cluster IP. Using that cluster IP, I can access my application from the node. And the load balancer, we have to deploy a load balancer. That load balancer will internally managed to route our request to our pods, right? So that will manage by the load balancer. So how we can deploy the node port or cluster IP? We have to mention the type is node port or load balancer or cluster IP, whatever, right? So we are using node port. So it will create a port inside the node, and then using the node we can access it. The app selector is name is Nginx, and the selector is basically what we have the deployment, right? We create a open this one. The app name is Nginx, right? Using this Nginx, we'll say in which you know application we need to put this service, right? So this is the Nginx. That application is deployed from the deployment, right? And now port will be 80 port. Here also the target port is 80 and the port is 80, means your target port is also 80 here in deployment, right? And the current port is also 80. From there we will access our application on 80 port, right? The service port. So we will see it. So how now we understood this two file, right? Deployment file and service file. This will deploy a Nginx. So let us create this one, the deployment. So how we can create? So cube. So where is my file? So here file is let's say ls node. So inside the node we have the engine deployment, Nginx service and test. We don't need this one. So how we can create a deployment? kubectl apply hyphen f and then file name nginx node.js nginx and deployment. So kubectl apply hyphen f. We have the file node.js slash nginx hyphen deployment.yaml. So this file we need to execute, right? This will create our deployment. So let's say create this one. Now you can say the deployment is created. Let's test how we can test it or check kubectl get deployment. So we have already this nginx deployment, right? Up to date 3 ready is 0, right? We have deployed 3 but still nothing is ready. You can put the name also. If you have a lot of deployment, you can say deployment nginx nginx one deployment, same, right? So this will give you all the deployments whatever you have in your namespace. It is by default, it will be inside the default namespace, right? So nginx deployment is my deployment name, right? This one. Now you can see all three is running. So let's see if we have pods running. Now kubectl get pods. You can see three pods are running. Nginx deployment. This is the ID. This three pods are running, right? Because we have given replica 3, so 3 pod will be created. If you have any pods you deleted tainted, automatically it will create another pod. The key, as I said in previous video, it is self-healing, right? If any pods is down, it will automatically create another pod. Now create the service. We can't access this. Let's say kubectl apply. It will be the same, right? Apply hyphen f and node.js nginx now service. In earlier I gave nginx deployment yaml, here nginx service yaml. Two file I have. Now the service is created. Let's check kubectl get svc. Earlier we have said see the Kubernetes cluster was running, right? And nginx notebook is in this IP is running, right? 10.10, this one. Now how we can test our application is working? Let's say curl. We can access through our this one Minikube IP. Test this one, right? So let's say curl 19 http double slash 192.168.49.2. This is the Minikube IP, right? And we have given the node port. So node port is this one, right? 31225, 31225, right? If you can run this, you can see the doc HTML, body HTML, right? This HTML, this application is running. Now how we can test in browser, because we don't have a UI on this, and because this iPad is not accessible outside, right? So maybe what we can do is we will install the GUI on the Linux box and test it. Or we will do, maybe we will expose one of the IP address from here to our local machine, and then we will see how it works, right? So in the next video definitely I will come up with how we can install the GUI and test our these you. Also we can put forward, right? If we do not want to use this one, this port, right? 31225, so we can do like we can do the port forwarding. How we can do this? Let's say kubectl port forward service. What is the service name? We have Nginx service. This one, right? Nginx service. This is the service, get service. Our service is Nginx service. Nginx service. Now port is, in which port we can do the 80 port, right? This is the 80 port, so we will port forward this to, just like we want to access to 8082, right? And our port is 80. So let's run this. Now it will not run because it port forward for now. Sign in, because when you put forward it will run, keep running your application. You can't execute your command here. Now you need to use your different command line. So let's say I have the same here, just same folder, just log into your machine, Vagrant SSH. You do not to Vagrant up now, you just need to log in, right? Clear this. Now you can see curl http double slash, you can say localhost 8082. You put forward 8082, right? Now you can see your application running. Also you can use your IP address also. Let's say curl 7.0.0.1, you can see. Okay, now we have seen one example. In the next video definitely I'll show you how to install GUI and test your this application to the browser. Also we will come up with some real example, like we can deploy our any kind of like Node.js, React, or uh, Java application, deploy into Kubernetes through some CI/CD pipeline, Azure DevOps, Jenkins, or any kind of, right? We'll come up. We'll think of it which is better, or you can also suggest what you want, right? Based on your suggestion, we will definitely use those tools, right? So let's move to the slide. So this will end to our video. Please share, subscribe, and comment if you have any doubt. Right? Thank you so much for watching my video.